Hey everyone, it is Dev from the Maniology community. Today we're talking about all different types of things to help improve straight designs. So have you guys ever got the wiggles before when you tried stamping a straight line design? This is a perfect example of what happens when you struggle with stamping straight lines. I have experienced this multiple times. It doesn't matter how seasoned of a stamper you are, sometimes these things still just happen. So I found some tips and tricks that I notice help reduce this, so that way you can get straighter lines like this. Also, please ignore this pink lines in the background. I was testing out something earlier. But as you can see, this side has some really bad distorted lines, while this side is nice and straight for the most part. So before we get started, I recommend having a few products on hand for today's troubleshooting. Let's get started. Designs that have straight lines. These are from our subscription box, and this is a plate that you can purchase online. It is M012. So this is a perfect example of a very straight line design. I know that we currently still sell this plate, however, I do not have the updated version in the Maniology backing. So something like this also works really well. I am going to be using the Monocle. If your stamper gets polish on it like this, don't worry, it doesn't affect it. You can still see through. So I'm going to be using our Monocle. However, today I had a really good stamping day. So hopefully that energy carries on in this live. But I was able to pick up straight lines with the ice cube and also the double-ended. Today was just a really lucky day. But I recommend, if you're starting out and you already struggle with these things, try using the Monocle. This is better. And the reason why it is better is because it doesn't have as curved of a surface. If you look at these two stampers side by side, you can see that the ice cube stamper has a more curved surface. That creates distortion when you're stamping, especially if you're newer and you're trying to figure out pressure and all this other stuff. It's much easier to do it with the Monocle because there's less curve. Even in comparison to this, you can see that there's more of a curve than the Monocle with the double-ended. So I recommend having a Monocle stamper, something that is not as curved. Also, it is going to be very, very important for working with straight lines that you make sure your stamper head is properly placed. So it should sit nicely in the groove. It should not be like this. This is dramatically going to affect how your straight lines come out. If the stamper head is like this, you can guarantee the design is going to be warped because the stamper head is warped right now. So you have to make sure it sits in evenly. When you're working with straight lines, you want to use less pressure, and you also want to do a straight up and down method. You're not going to roll because rolling is going to cause more distortion. So let's get started. Also, I recommend having cream polish. If you're starting out with stamping straight lines, it's easier to work with cream than it is to work with a special texture or shimmer. Each stamper has their own personality and their own little quirks, so you're going to have to figure out which one works best for you, and some work better for certain techniques than others. So again, you're going to have to figure that out and play around with it. When you're stamping straight lines, I recommend tilting the plate in the direction of the line. Does that make sense? So if it's a horizontal line, you do not want to scrape it in the same direction. And the reason why is because you're gonna end up digging polish out of the line. So you have to tilt it in the opposite direction, so that way when you scrape, it goes this way and it just fills the etching instead of digging polish out. Let me show if You see how it like has the ability to dig in to the design when you're scraping, if I scrape horizontally versus if I turn it vertically and scrape that way. This way, there's no possible way for the scraper to dig into the etching. We don't want that. That's going to make your life so complicated. So let's start with our little straight lines. Okay, guys, wish me good luck. So again, when you're working with this, work quickly. Up and down. And when you're stamping it, quick also. Oh my God. It worked on camera. Yes. Hopefully every stamp will be as perfect as this. Even though the lines, you know, aren't fully colored in, the fact that it came out straight when I picked it up and straight when I transferred is the thing that we want to focus on right now. So when I was working, I pressed down and pulled up. I didn't roll. I didn't like wobble at all. I didn't shake when I pressed down. It's literally just a strong up and down motion. And then even when you're stamping, if you can, I recommend just also doing a straight kind of up and down. Don't roll it because that causes more distortion. Let's try again with a different design. So because the lines are facing horizontally, I'm going to turn them vertically so that way I don't dig out any polish. And let's try using latte. So make sure you apply a nice healthy amount of polish. You don't want to skimp on this. Make sure your stamper's clean and lined up. I just did a quick check. Make sure you hold your plate down when you do that too. As you could hear, my plate kind of So, unfortunately, I was kind of holding the tip weird, so I noticed that the lines are kind of like leaning, but it's still, for the most part, the lines are straight. I'm not getting the wave in the middle of the design. You see? So, this kind of wave happens when you... Here, let me clean the stamper off before when you're applying it and you like wiggle. Any little wiggle will cause that kind of distortion. So make sure that when you are working with this, that again, you kind of pop it up and down. I am gonna also try doing the double-ended to see if I can. I was able to pull it off earlier today, but if you try this, you just might need to practice a bit. Practice that technique of, again, the popping it up and down. Oh, I got a little wave. Maybe I'm just gonna take the line that looks nice. So I was able to get this to work. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions about how to do straight line designs? Okay, horizontal lines. I know someone mentioned that. Let's try again with this. So if you're working with horizontal lines, again, turn them vertical to scrape. And I'm gonna try a shimmer polish. This is our newest polish called Ghoulish, and it is inside our Mani by Me subscription box. So if you don't know what that is, you should definitely check it out. Yes. Yes. So yeah, that worked. I used my double-ended. I still recommend using the Monocle if you're new. It's a little bit easier, I think, but this also worked too. Sometimes when I am stamping, I'll do this thing where I'll slowly push the design on the stamper, just so that way I make sure that initial contact isn't wavy in the center, and then I just press down really firm. Because usually the waviness happens towards the center of the design. That's something I noticed. And part of the reason why I think that it happens usually towards the center of the design and not as much towards the sides is because when you are pushing the stamper down, you're forcing it to conform to the like curved surface. So then it just kind of makes everything get pressed downwards, which straightens things out. That's why I think I see, yeah, most of my curves happen in the center of my lines. So another technique that you can try is kind of gently pushing the surface, or gently applying pressure on the first contact that you're making with your base. Does that make sense? So I don't know if you guys can see this in here. Let me see if I can adjust it so you can see this better. Okay. Can you see that my stamper head is making partial contact right now? Can you tell that the stamper is not pressed all the way down and that it's only in the center being pressed? Let me check those comments. Can you see it? Give me hearts if you can see that there's a little oval in the center and that's like where the stamper head is touching the nail. Okay, cool. So when you first stamp a straight line, you should have that little pressure. That area needs to be straight. That will help set everything up, because once that touches, then you can press firmly down and the lines will automatically like straighten out on the sides. So try that. And again, like I said, it's an up and down kind of pressure, but it's not this. You don't want any of this rolling action. I'll do maybe one more example where she stamps a line and then there's excess of that line and the polish comes back and ends up getting like smushed back onto the nail. So then your lines get all messed up. When you are working with your design, I recommend giving it a firm push because you want it to basically cut the excess polish off, which is possible, but you're gonna have to press a little harder. So I'm gonna try and recreate the problem and then show you how to fix it. Okay, well, that's not working. I unfortunately am having a hard time recreating that problem. But again, my suggestion to getting that to be reduced is by pushing firmly down on your stamp, so that way the stamper has to curve to the entire surface of the nail, and that pressure kind of cuts the excess polish off the stamp. Does that make sense? So yeah, move quickly, use a sticky base if you need to, if you're a little bit slower, and firmly press. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share with you guys today, was how to stamp some straight lines. I hope everyone has an amazing day, and thank you so much for joining us. And also, if you try this and try any of our techniques, make sure you mention us or hashtag us so that way we can see your progress. We're doing this so that way we can all progress together. Have an amazing day. Talk to you later. Bye.